SpongeBob SquarePants is a series that needs no introduction, especially not if you clicked on this video. After its 1999 premiere, it quickly exploded in popularity, becoming one of the biggest shows of all time. And since then, we've seen the franchise be expanded in many different ways. We've seen movies, musicals, video games, and the one I want to focus on today, rides. There have been a lot of different SpongeBob rides across many different amusement parks over the years. There's roller coasters, 4D simulator rides, drop towers, dark rides, and more. And today, I'm going to try cover all of them, and even visit some of them. So without further ado, let's just get into it, I guess. SpongeBob first made the jump into the amusement park world back in 2003, whilst the series was in its third season, with the ride SpongeBob's Boatmobiles opening on March 29th, 2003. This one was located at California's Great America, which at the time of the ride's opening was known as Paramount's Great America, and it was in an area of the park known as Nickelodeon Central, which, as the name implies, was a whole Nick-themed area that also featured rides based off of other shows such as Rugrats and Dora. The ride itself had riders sit inside of cars that were meant to resemble the Boatmobiles from the show. These cars were able to freely spin around as the ride moved, and on top of this, the ride itself also spun, with the metal plates the cars were sat on being attached to the center part that spins them around the big SpongeBob statue. And just in case that wasn't enough, each metal plate contains its own middle part that spins the boats on it. So that's 3 layers of spins right there. The boat itself spins, all the boats on each metal plate spin around it, and then the metal plate is spinning around the SpongeBob statue in the center as well. Another interesting fact about this ride is that during it, songs from the series like the theme song or Ripped Pants would be played to riders, which is neat. Now sadly, this ride was later shut down, as you may have been able to tell by the fact that this whole segment was written in past tense. It ceased operation on November 1st, 2009, due to the park, which was previously owned by Paramount, the owners of SpongeBob, but then sold on to Cedar Fair after Paramount began selling off all their parks, choosing not to renew their licensing contract with Nickelodeon. But okay, the ride isn't technically like shut down or anything, because it was actually re-themed. After the Nickelodeon licensing deal ended, this area of the park instead became Planet Snoopy, a Peanuts themed area, and the SpongeBob ride is currently still operating, but now it's Peanuts Pirates. Following this, SpongeBob's next ride would actually come not long after, like really not long after, genuinely less than 2 weeks later. And okay, this one isn't technically labelled as a SpongeBob ride, and that's because it isn't a SpongeBob ride really. However, SpongeBob does have a large presence in the ride, and well, if I didn't include it in the video, I know for a fact that there have been loads of comments about it. So this ride is Jimmy Neutron's Nicktoon Blast, which, as the name suggests, is most largely themed around Jimmy Neutron, but it also features various characters from many other Nicktoons and locations from The Fairly OddParents, Rugrats, and of course SpongeBob SquarePants. As you're probably able to guess from the on-screen footage, this one is a motion simulator ride, and it was located at Universal Studios Florida. The ride would open on April 11th, 2003, with it being located in a building previously home to the futuristic world of Hanna-Barbera, which had shut down on October 20th, 2002, and was another motion simulator ride that, interestingly, seemingly followed the exact same idea as this ride, only with Hanna-Barbera characters instead of Nickelodeon ones. The outside building for Jimmy Neutron's Nicktoon Blast featured the iconic Nick Splat logo, as well as images of various Nick characters. Going inside the building, the line was all themed around Jimmy Neutron, as you'd expect, but it also featured various videos from various Nicktoons to keep riders entertained during the wait. This does include a SpongeBob one, in which SpongeBob essentially tells guests some rules, by first greeting them and then asking them to refrain from the following activities. He then lists many things you can't do on the ride, which are accompanied by clips from the show matching each activity. Going into the actual ride part itself now, and firstly, guests would sit through a pre-show video in which Jimmy shows off his new rocket. Then Oobla breaks in and plays a video in which it stated the Yokians are basically trying to take over humanity, and they're going to use Jimmy's ship to try and do that. Oobla then steals the remote for Jimmy's rocket, or okay, not really steal because he asks Carl for it and Carl just gives it him, but he maliciously took Jimmy's rocket basically. And now Jimmy, Carl, and the ride's guests have to go get it back before it's too late. So now the whole ride premise is set up, guests would then be seated in a Jimmy Neutron rocket before the actual main ride started. The ride video itself first sees Jimmy, along with Carl, take his rocket around Nicktoon Studios, whilst going after Oobla, which is presented as being like a real life place where the shows are being created, with many characters from different shows walking about the place place and shows having their own sound stages where filming is presumably taking place, which is an idea I like. Jimmy then flies into the Rugrats soundstage, where guests are taken all around the Pickles house. After that, Jimmy and Carl enter the Fairly OddParents soundstage, taking us into Fairy World, where we see Cosmo and Wanda. Interestingly, this was 2003, which is 1 year prior to the Jimmy Timmy Power Hour. Just thought that was interesting. Cosmo and Wanda briefly try to help the two, and Cosmo ends up giving Carl his wand. They end up wishing to follow Ooblar, and this takes us to the Yokian planet, where King Goobot gets Pultra to attack Jimmy, which actually causes Ooblar to get fried like an egg. The attack unfortunately causes Jimmy's rocket to lose power, so Carl uses Cosmo's wand to wish the two back to Earth. This is where the SpongeBob section finally occurs, as when the two return to Earth, they end up crashing into Bikini Bottom. They first land in Jellyfish Fields, where SpongeBob and Patrick are jellyfishing. When SpongeBob sees the rocket, he assumes it is a rocket-powered jellyfish, and ends up catching onto it with his net, causing him, Jimmy, Carl, and I guess us, to be taken all around Bikini Bottom, as Jimmy essentially loses control of the ship. We first go to Conch Street, where we see Squidward in his house, and see Gary, who was in SpongeBob's house prior to it getting sliced up by the rocket. We then go into Bikini Bottom, where we see residents of the town like Mrs. Puff and Larry. Also, I like this line. Hello, secondary character. That was funny. After that, we crush into the Krusty Krab, where we see Mr. Krabs, who briefly is caught on SpongeBob and dragged along the rocket with him. After this, Jimmy enters a pipe that takes him back to his lab, but then in his lab, King Goobot appears and makes Carl dance to the chicken dance. But fortunately, he's eventually able to free himself and use the wand to defeat King Goobot. The end. If you've never seen Jimmy Neutron Boy Genius, I don't know how much sense that would have made, but oh well. This ride would remain open until August 18th, 2011, when it was shut down, and I mean, the reason makes sense. Like in 2011, Rugrats and, more importantly, Jimmy Neutron were both over. I mean, the whole ride featured predominantly Jimmy Neutron theming, and it's literally named after him. The Adventures of Jimmy Neutron Boy Genius ended in 2006, so that was half a decade ago at that point. It logically, I guess, made sense why they'd want to get rid of this ride, since each year less and less kids were gonna know what Jimmy Neutron and some of the other shows present here were, and so it permanently closed its doors forever. This ride would eventually be replaced with Despicable Me Minion Mayhem in June of 2012, which as of this video is what is still there currently, and probably will remain there for the foreseeable future due to the popularity of that franchise still being incredibly high. After this, the next ride was also, interestingly, in 2003, with it actually being another motion simulator ride, but this time being an entirely SpongeBob based one, this being SpongeBob SquarePants 4D Ride, also sometimes known as SpongeBob SquarePants 3D Ride or just SpongeBob SquarePants The Ride, which was a ride that would actually be opened in many locations all around the world, both theme parks and also some aquariums, which makes sense given the fact that SpongeBob is a show about sea creatures living underwater. This ride first opened in May of 2003 in many different Paramount Parks locations, and later went on to open in other places, which makes it a little difficult for me to talk about. Like with the previous two entries, I described the ride itself and stuff. Like with the last one, I talked about and showed the outside building and like the indoor theming of the line, but here that's hard to do since there's multiple locations and buildings where this ride is located, so I can't really do that. What I can do though is talk about the actual ride video and the line video. So first, as guests were waiting to get on the ride, this video would be played during the line on various TVs located around the place. And what's interesting about this video is that it was actually lost media due to the fact it was only used for this ride and then not released elsewhere, as you'd expect given its only reason to exist was to be played in this line and, you know, not anywhere else. The ride video would remain lost and not even talked about until March 17th, 2022, when user Submandude posted about it to the Lost Media Wiki forums, with his post stating, "When I saw SpongeBob 4D, there was a video that played to keep people entertained as they waited in line. Here's my memory of it. We see SpongeBob. He's animated in the same CG style as the actual ride. I believe he's waiting in line for a ride at Glove World. He turns to the audience and introduces himself. I believe he says something characteristically optimistic about the wait, like, 'Don't you just love waiting in line?' He then proceeds to set up various different clips from the show, and it serves as a bit of a clip show. The only specific clip that I'm pretty sure played was the dance from Jellyfish Jam. What I'm talking about is not the same as this video, which played in front of a different ride altogether, Blink. I don't believe there are any safety tips in the video I remember, although there may have been basic line rules like no cutting, no pushing, single file, etc. Does anyone else remember this? The video he linked here was that video from the Jimmy Neutron ride. Later, another forum user known as LaDerp uncovered 3 old videos from the ride's line that showed some of the video, and Submandu's description did seem to line up with what was shown. Eventually, a recording of the video from the line was discovered when Twitter user greenthing_CTR revealed they had downloaded a recording of it from a now deleted YouTube video many years ago. This video is now available online and archived, but we still don't have like the full raw footage from it. All we have is a camera recorded copy. Anyway, what this line video essentially is SpongeBob talking to the audience whilst he waits in line for something, and he talks about some of his memories, which are moments from the show that are then played to the guests. So basically it's effectively a clip show of SpongeBob funny moments to keep people entertained as they wait for the ride, which makes sense. The actual ride itself then sees SpongeBob at the Krusty Krab showing riders how to make a Krabby Patty, but uh-oh, he loses the pickle, which is then taken by Patrick on a pogo stick, so he has to go after him. We are obviously taken along, and first end up in downtown Bikini Bottom, then Jellyfish Fields, and then Rock Bottom, where one of the residents pops SpongeBob's bubble bike, sending us and him flying into the shum bucket, where it is revealed that the Patrick who stole the pickle was actually a robot made by Plankton. Then the real Patrick unplugs it, and it ends up crushing Plankton, thus saving the pickle and completing the patty. The patty is then given to the customer, who turns out didn't want pickle because he's allergic. The end. Over the years these rides have been open, many have shut down, but at the same time a few have opened and remain open, leaving 4 currently in operation as of today, these being located at Kemah Boardwalk, Texas, Bioland Istanbul, Trans Studio Makassar, Indonesia, and Movie Park, Germany. After this, it'd be 2 years until the next SpongeBob ride, as the next one would open on March 19th, 2005, this being the Flying Dutchman's Revenge, which was located at Carowinds, North Carolina. This ride has guests be seated in a pirate ship, and they then go around in circles, and the track they're on goes up and down. So they're going round and round and up and down. And what's interesting about this is I've basically been on this exact same ride. I previously made a video titled Nickelodeon's Forgotten Theme Park, in which I spoke about Nickelodeon Land, and one of the rides there is known as the Backyardigans Pirate Treasure. And I mean, look at this thing. It's basically the same ride, only Backyardigans themed as opposed to SpongeBob themed. So I guess this is a generic pirate ship ride that was then themed to these 2 things. Anyway, the SpongeBob one here has the Flying Dutchman in the centre, as well as SpongeBob characters around him. Also, strangely, on this SpongeBob one, the individual ships seem to spin also, from what I can see in this one video. But it doesn't appear to be every single ship that spins, so like, maybe guests can control it or something, I don't know. This ride didn't have a very long lifespan, with it closing on November 1st, 2009, meaning it only lasted just over 4 years, RIP. The reason for the closure was basically the exact same as the previously discussed SpongeBob's Boatmobiles ride from 2003, with them even shutting down the exact same day. This is because the park was now under new ownership, having also been purchased by Cedar Fair and them choosing not to renew the license, which led to this ride being rethemed to Peanuts Pirates. Again, damn, if I had a nickel for every time a SpongeBob ride was opened in the 2000s at a Paramount Park only for that park to be bought by Cedar Fair and for them to not renew the license and instead choose to shut down the ride on November 1st, 2009 to then replace that ride with Peanuts Pirates, I'd have 2 nickels. Which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it happened twice. Speaking of SpongeBob rides that were closed on November 1st, 2009 due to Paramount selling the park it was in and the new owners not renewing the license, the next ride on the list is Plankton's Plunge, which was opened on April 14th, 2006 at Kings Island, Ohio. This one is obviously all themed around Plankton and is a little drop tower that takes riders up a little, then drops them, and then does that over and over for a while. I'm not going to repeat myself again, you know the story by now. This one shut down on November 1st, 2009 and would be rethemed to Kite Eating Tree, which is in fact another Peanuts themed ride. Weirdly though, this isn't the only Plankton's Plunge drop tower, as there is another drop tower with that name that opened many years later and is basically a modernized version of this ride. I don't know whether this is counted as a separate attraction because they look different but have the same exact idea and name, so I'll just mention this one now. This one opened on March 1st, 2025 at the Land of Legends in Turkey, with it basically being a modernized version of the original ride's idea. After this, the next SpongeBob ride to be created was in April of 2007, being SpongeBob Splash Bash, which first opened at Movie Park, Germany in, well, Germany. This ride spins riders around and basically you have to try squirt over riders on the ride, with your goal being to get them as wet as possible. So yeah, it's a water ride basically, which honestly, I mean, great fit for SpongeBob of all properties. He lives underwater. Now, what's especially interesting about this one is it opened at multiple locations, with the second place it opened being Nickelodeon Land in Blackpool, England, where the ride opened the same day as the area on May 4th, 2011. And do you know what's what's cool about that, I live in England. It fucking sucks. And guess what? Nickelodeon Land is only like 2 hours away from me. So I thought, well, why don't I just go and see the thing for myself? Again, I previously went here for my video Nickelodeon's Forgotten Theme Park mentioned earlier, and now I'm returning for this one. Also because I just liked it. So yeah, I set off on my journey, which, I mean, since it's 2 hours away, will actually take a minimum of 4 hours because I gotta go there and back. And also I can't actually drive, so I gotta go by train, then Uber, which makes the journey closer to like 7 hours rather than 4. Subscribe, by the way. But yeah, after all that, I'm here at the ride. We have SpongeBob Splash over here. So yeah, the goal is to squirt people on the ride. As you can sort of see here, that is what is occurring. I can squirt from here with this, but I don't know if it works. So here, you sit in these coral-covered seats and have to use a water gun to shoot the other people on the ride, just like the previous version. This version of the ride has like the coral from SpongeBob all around it to theme the ride, then SpongeBob in the middle riding Mystery the Seahorse. Patrick is also here, holding a jellyfishing net, with there also being jellyfish all around the ride. Sandy is also here too, inside of a clam, interestingly not in her suit, which I guess makes sense since we're above water, so. Squid was also here, holding an umbrella. Well, that was fun. Also, there are 2 more SpongeBob rides here, so we will be returning later. As in, later in the video, I did it all in one trip, obviously. This ride would also be later opened in Parque de Atracciones de Madrid in Spain on April 30th, 2014. And this one is the same ride as the one in England, only now it's themed around Glove World, which honestly is a great choice for, you know, a ride. Each version of this ride visually does look a little different with how the theming is done, however the core concept and name is the same in each one. Okay, this next ride here is really cool. Not that the others weren't, but thus far this one is the coolest. This being Rock Bottom Plunge, which is a roller coaster, and actually our first roller coaster on the list. This ride opened on March 15th, 2008 at Mall of America in Bloomington, Minnesota, inside of Nickelodeon Universe, which is the indoor theme park located inside of the mall. The coaster was manufactured by no idea how you pronounce that, and is themed around Rock Bottom, specifically being themed around that 90-degree drop road that takes you into Rock Bottom. What's interesting about this ride is that since SpongeBob is a kid's property, all the rides discussed so far have been like family rides for all ages. However, this one isn't. This is just a full-on thrilling roller coaster with a SpongeBob theme, which is cool. So the ride starts by taking riders up 67 feet, with them being positioned vertically at exactly 90 degrees. Then it drops them at an angle of 97 degrees. So more than vertical, where it then goes into a loop, and then many more twists and turns for a while until the ride eventually comes to an end, with it having a top speed of 43.5 miles an hour, and in total lasting for about 2 minutes. Interestingly, the very next ride after this is also a roller coaster, this one opening a mere 2 months later in May of 2008. It is Ghost Chasers, and is located at Movie Park, Germany. This is specifically a Wild Mouse coaster, which is a type of coaster that has riders sit in small carts that generally sit about 4 people, and the focus of the coaster is having tight turns, with them often featuring numerous 180-degree turns. This specific coaster was originally opened in 2000 under the name Mad Manor, but was later rethemed to Tom and Jerry at some later date, and after that SpongeBob in 2008, which is the state the coaster remains in today, with the theme specifically focusing on the Flying Dutchman and ghosts, hence the name. The ride takes guests first up a lift hill, then round many 180-degree turns that descend slowly. Then it does 2 long turns, then a big old drop, a turn, some like bunny hops, and finally another turn. This one also wasn't the only SpongeBob ride to be opened at Movie Park this month, as at the same time we also got the ride Sea Swing, which was all themed around jellyfish and jellyfish fields. It's a little swing ride, a type of ride in which riders are seated in suspended seats that then spin in a circle, and this one is also still open today. The month following the opening of these 2 rides, on June 20th, 2008, the ride SpongeBob SquarePants would be opened at Dream World in Australia, in a Nickelodeon themed area of the park known as Nickelodeon Central. This one, similarly to the previous ride, is also themed around jellyfish and jellyfish fields, with it seemingly being specifically based off of the season 3 special, The Sponge Who Could Fly. This ride is very similar to the last one for numerous reasons, because it also spins riders in a circle. However, here they're suspended higher and the ride spins at an angle to make riders go up and down. They're also lying on their front here instead of sitting down. Also, one of the few videos of this ride available online has its original audio replaced with the song Hey There Delilah instead, which is just kind of funny to me because it's over footage of a SpongeBob ride.
Hey there Delilah, what's it like in New York City?
This ride remained open for quite a short amount of time, as not long after, on June 24th, 2011, the area it was located in rebranded from Nickelodeon Central to Kid World, and thus the Nick branding was dropped, which of course included the SpongeBob ride. So yeah, it was only open for a mere 3 years. Speaking of 3 years, it would be 3 years before we got the next SpongeBob ride. Well, the next 2 or 3 SpongeBob rides actually, as May 4th, 2011 saw the opening of Nickelodeon Land in England, which features 3 different SpongeBob rides. There's obviously SpongeBob Splash Bash, which I already talked about, and this is the second SpongeBob Splash Bash ride to be open, but then there are 2 others. Firstly, we've got Bikini Bottom Bus Tour, which has guests sit inside a replica of the bus from SpongeBob. That then goes in this motion. I don't know what this motion is called. It's going forwards and up in a circle. It then does the same motion backwards halfway through the ride, making the bus now go the other way until the ride ends. On one side of the bus, you can see the rest of Nickelodeon Land, and then on the other side, you can see artwork showing a street in Bikini Bottom. The second new ride here is Krusty Krab Order Up, which is a drop tower that's all themed around the Krusty Krab, having a little replica of the building's exterior as well as a statue of Mr. Krabs outside. The building even features artwork of many fish inside of the restaurant enjoying Krabby Patties. This ride basically does the same thing as Plankton's Plunge, by taking riders up a bit, then dropping them, doing that over and over for a little bit, and then ending. Moving on from Nickelodeon Land now, and the next ride would come on April 19th, 2013, with this being another motion simulator ride known as SpongeBob SquarePants 4D The Great Jelly Rescue. And like its predecessor, it was also opened at numerous locations, both parks and aquariums. This ride is also quite a bit longer than the previous one, having a runtime of about 7 minutes, whilst the previous one was 4 minutes 40 seconds. The ride begins with us being sent down into jellyfish fields, where SpongeBob and Patrick are jellyfishing. Sandy then pulls up to show us her new net launcher. As she does this, all the jellyfish begin disappearing, which SpongeBob eventually takes notice of, and then a huge amount of them come flying in and take us and them flying around a few locations from the show, like we see Conch Street, the Krusty Krab, and then Goo Lagoon. Eventually, the trio are taken to what is causing these jellyfish to act this way, with it being revealed there's a truck that's sucking them all up. So they go investigate, where they discover it's Plankton's truck, and he reveals his plan is to steal the electricity from all the jellyfish so he can use it to destroy the Krusty Krab. Plankton attacks them with his machine, causing loads of smoke to appear. Then the Flying Dutchman shows up to complain about it, and in the process gets his headlight broken. He blames the trio for all this and ends up dragging them into the perfume department, a callback to the iconic joke from season 2's Shanghai. Now fortunately, Sandy remains unaffected by the perfume department because of, her suit not allowing her to smell any of it or anything, and she is able to explain the situation. From there, the Flying Dutchman takes them out the perfume department and uses his cannons to try stop Plankton. Patrick accidentally ends up attaching the trio to a cannonball and sends them and us flying all around Bikini Bottom, where we get to see more locations like Conch Street, close up, downtown Bikini Bottom, and finally the Krusty Krab, where the cannonball crashes into Plankton's truck, defeating him. As of now, this ride is still open at Adventure Dome in Las Vegas, apparently. After this ride, the next SpongeBob ride to open was Patrick's Jellyfish Frenzy, which first opened at Parque de Atracciones de Madrid in Spain on April 30th, 2014, and then later SeaWorld Australia on September 24th, 2015. The ride itself is basically a teacups ride, except instead of teacups, you're seated in jellyfish. Okay, the next ride after this is kind of not a ride. It's an attraction, but it's more show-like than ride-like, so I don't know whether it should be counted, but hey, it's here. This is SpongeBob Subpants Adventure, which is located at Moody Gardens in Galveston, Texas. Basically, guests sit in a showroom designed to look similar to the inside of a submarine, with the idea being they're going underwater, and at the front of the room is a big 30-foot 3D screen in which we see SpongeBob and Patrick go on an adventure. But what's cool about this, and what differentiates it from just being like watching a video, is guests can interact and decide what the two do and where they go, and they're even able to interact live with the characters thanks to the digital puppetry technology present on the ride that allows behind the scenes performers to control the characters in certain instances. Neat stuff. This ride / show opened back on May 23rd, 2015. That same year, on September 24th, 2015, we'd see another SpongeBob ride in the form of Bikini Bottom Crosstown Express, which first opened at SeaWorld Queensland, Australia, but has since popped up in another location, being Nickelodeon Universe in the American Dream Mall in New Jersey many years later on October 25th, 2019. Not to be confused with the previously mentioned Nickelodeon Universe at Mall of America in Minnesota, these are two separate locations. This ride is another one based off of the Bikini Bottom bus, but this one is a rock and tug ride manufactured by Zamperla. This is essentially a ride where the ride vehicle moves forwards and backwards on this curved track that makes it go up and down, but at the same time is also spinning, and so goes like this. And here, the ride vehicle is the Bikini Bottom bus. Nice. I've actually been on one of these types of rides at Motion Gate in Dubai in the Shrek area, and it was good. Now, SeaWorld Queensland Australia wouldn't just have one SpongeBob ride, as on September 24th, 2015, aka the exact same day, another was opened, being SpongeBob's Boating School Blast, which is another roller coaster, but this time a less thrilling one and more of a kiddie one. This coaster is all themed around Mrs. Puff's boating school, and has riders be seated in ride cars modelled after the boatmobiles from the series. The concept here is that riders are being sent round the actual course at the school. And what's interesting about this ride is it's another one that has opened in multiple locations. Kinda. There's two types of rides that share this exact same name, and the ones in other locations are all the second variant of the ride, with the second one of SpongeBob's Boating School Blast opening in Nickelodeon Adventure, Murcia in Spain on December 1st, 2017. This second variant is seemingly similar to, you know, like the Legoland driving school thing. It seems like it's kind of like that, but with SpongeBob. So kids can drive their own boatmobiles around the course at Mrs. Puff's boating school. Nickelodeon Adventure Madrid, also in Spain, has one of these too, with that opening on December 17, 2018, and finally, one was also opened at Nickelodeon Adventure Lakeside in England at some point. Don't know when, but it was opened one day. Following this, we'd get a ride based off of Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy, being specifically based off of the episode Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy 5 from season 3, and featuring the characters in their International Justice League of Super Acquaintances outfits, with them attempting to battle against Man Ray to free Barnacle Boy. The actual ride part of this has riders be seated in rockets that spin around the center, and also have a button in it that when pressed makes the rider's vehicle go up, and obviously when let go makes them descend. This ride was opened in May of 2018. The next year, on October 25th, 2019, the ride SpongeBob's Jellyfish Jam would be opened at the American Dream Mall in New Jersey inside of Nickelodeon Universe. This is another one themed around jellyfish and jellyfish fields, and is named after the iconic season 1 episode Jellyfish Jam. This one is another swing ride that is supposed to look like a big jellyfish, and riders are sat in suspended seats that are basically jellyfish tentacles. The ride goes up and spins fast, causing these seats to become diagonal. Interestingly, this ride would later also be opened at the Land of Legends in Turkey on March 1st, 2025, with it, unlike some other previously talked about rides, actually being the exact same ride, just in another location. Alright, this next one now is sick, because it's another big old roller coaster, this one being Sandy's Blasting Bronco. It opened at Nickelodeon Universe in the American Dream Mall in New Jersey on October 1st, 2020. But there's an interesting backstory here, as the ride was in the park at its launch on October 25th, 2019, which you know is when that last ride opened and also one of the other previously mentioned rides. However, it didn't open for almost a year, and the reason for this was that the coaster was not certified by the New Jersey Department of Community Affairs as ready to operate at the time the park opened, which is what led to the long wait for its opening. So it just kind of sat there for a year. Anyway, the coaster itself is themed around Sandy's rocket, like the actual rocket itself and also the season 1 episode with that name. And the ride cars the riders are seated in are based on the design of the rocket. So basically the idea is riders are riding in Sandy's rocket. Now the layout here is sick. I mean, just look at this thing, it's awesome. This one is a launch coaster, the first SpongeBob launch coaster, and so immediately starts with a launch that sends riders into 2 Immelman inversions back to back before then going into 2 more inversions and coming back to the station, where the vehicle comes to a stop and the ride ends. Just kidding, what actually happens is the track piece the car is on spins around 180 degrees and sends riders around the track again, only now they're facing backwards. And then when they get back to the station, the ride ends. Awesome stuff. So this coaster is about 1,607 feet in length and reaches a top speed of 47.8 miles an hour. Also, it's 85.3 feet tall. Following this, another SpongeBob ride wouldn't be open for 4 more years. I cannot possibly imagine why that may have been the case. The Bob returned to the amusement ride world on March 1st, 2024, when SpongeBob's Crazy Carnival ride opened at Circus Hotel and Casino in Las Vegas. This is an interactive shooting dark ride, and the premise here is that that Mr. Krabs has opened a carnival and is inviting guests to play his ride through carnival games. The ride even has Mr. Krabs accurate pricing. What great dedication to theming. Now unfortunately, the delivery guy hasn't delivered the necessary equipment for the carnival and instead has only delivered Krabby Patty ingredients. This is quite the problem, causing Patrick to state, "Too bad we can't just use this stuff," which then leads to SpongeBob getting the idea to do exactly that. Plankton finds out about this, and with him wanting the formula and all, he attempts to steal the ingredients from riders during the game. So yeah, that's basically the setup here. And one thing I just gotta mention here is that the animation on this thing looks great, honestly. Fantastic stuff. The ride then, as you'd expect, has riders playing various interactive carnival games to get points, with Plankton showing up at times to steal ingredients, and also being shootable. The ride ultimately ends with Plankton getting captured, and Mr. Krabs being mad at SpongeBob and Patrick for using all those ingredients. Now, a year after this ride opened in Vegas, a second one of it was opened at the Land of Legends in Turkey in their SpongeBob area, like exactly a year later to the very day, with it opening March 1st, 2025. Speaking of the Land of Legends, that's a place that's already come up a lot in this video, and that is due to it having an entire big Nickelodeon area. So this park originally opened back in 2016, and more recently on March 1st, 2025, it opened its Nickelodeon Land area and Nick's themed hotel, with this area having a whole SpongeBob section in it containing 7 rides, all having opened March 1st, 2025. I've already mentioned SpongeBob's Crazy Carnival ride, Jellyfish Jam and Plankton's Plunge, but there's also Snailways Express, which is, well, it's just Bikini Bottom Bus Tour, but with a different name. The Flying Dutchman's Ghost Ship, a pirate ship ride themed around the Flying Dutchman, which, I mean, makes sense since he has a pirate ship. There's also the Fiery Fist of Fun, a Zamperla Nebula's ride based off of, interestingly, the Glove World ride, the Fiery Fist of Pain, from the series, which SpongeBob and Patrick rode in Season 5's Roller Cowards, with these two rides sharing similar design choices. It's weird there hasn't been more Glove World theming present here, since, you know, that's the fictional theme park in the show, so if you're making an actual ride, you'd think you'd look there, but from what I can see, they've only done that twice. Oh well, maybe one day we'll see a real Fiery Fist of Pain open. And finally, we have Sandy's Rockets, a cool ride where track is on the ceiling and guests are seated inside of cars based off of Sandy's rocket that are suspended from this track, that then takes them slowly around the whole area, allowing guests to look about the place from up high, which is pretty neat. Okay, so that is all of the SpongeBob rides currently open as of filming. However, there are some that are gonna be open soon, and probably already are open for you watching this because as I'm recording this, they're literally open in a week, with their opening date planned to be July 1st, 2026. On July 1st, 2026, 4 new SpongeBob rides are scheduled to open as a part of Universal's new kids resort located in Texas called Universal Kids Resort, which was recently given an opening date, and it will have a SpongeBob area inside of it. Now, the 4 rides in this place will be Barnacle Bus, which is literally just the previously talked about Bikini Bottom Crosstown Express with a different name. Bobbing Barrels are a ride in which you spin around in barrels and attempt to shoot other riders, so kind of similar to SpongeBob Splash Bash. Jellyfish Fields Jamboree, another ride interestingly themed around jellyfish and jellyfish fields. There seem to be a lot of these, and this one is basically the exact same as Hero Spin, only now jellyfish themed. And finally, there's also Mrs. Puff's Boating School, which is themed around, well, take a guess, and has riders seated inside cars based off of boatmobiles. And this one, weirdly, is the same as the Flying Dutchman's Revenge, but now boating school themed, which means every single ride here already has had a pre-existing SpongeBob version in the past. Just a weird quinky dink right there. Anyway, that finally concludes my look into every SpongeBob ride. If you enjoyed, don't forget to like and subscribe so I can reach 50,000 subscribers by some point in time. Also, check out Our Stupid School. It's a show I made and I'm in. And I have Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and I think that's it. Finally, shout out to the really freaking sweet tier members, Arcane GD, him, and goodbye.